Hi everybody, welcome to Caketastic Cakes. I'm going to show you how to make your very own Spider-Man and name. Alright, if you ever need anything that you see me using, any tools or supplies, if you check in the description below, I have links to everything, so happy shopping. There you go. Alright, I went online, I found a cool looking picture of Spider-Man that I liked, I printed it out in the size that I wanted, and now I am trimming him out on some red that I rolled out pretty darn thin. And I am going to use him as my template. This is our starting point, making him all in the red, okay? Trim him out, use your X-Acto knife all around as best you can. And okay, now I'm going to take that piece that I have there and I'm going to put him on top of a paper towel after I separate out any, like the little fingers, if there's a little bit extra anywhere, to trim it up, clean it up. And then, like I said, put him on a paper towel and stick him to the side. Now what I'm doing is I'm trimming off the blue parts of his costume. So I'm trimming off his legs, and I'm going to trim off a little bit of his stomach, and that one leg right there, it has some boot on it that stays red. So I'm going to trim that off. And then I'm going to use those on some blue in order to start putting his costume together. I'm going to start putting it together basically in layers. Okay. Now, there's a little bit on his arm, so I'm cutting his one arm off and putting it to the side for now. All right, so anyway, we are going to roll out your blue super thin, pretty much as thin as you can make it without it just being a pain in the butt to work with. Using those pieces that you cut out of his legs and little spot on his arm, just start trimming. So I took out the one thigh there, putting it onto the piece that we've got, the red that we've cut out already. And it's a little bit bigger and it's also a little bit thicker, so I'm trying to kind of like smooth it down so it overlaps the sides of the costume as well, or the sides of the red. So you're not going to have quite as much of a red edge on the sides. And I'm using the back of my nail, just kind of smooth it around. And as you can see, yes, I did just mix the blue, so it stained me up like crazy. And I don't know why, it was a different kind of coloring that I used than normal. It was really liquidy. I normally use a gel. And it was like made of permanent marker or something. It was so hard to get off. And as you can see, I'm still a little blue. So there you go. There are the two thighs. I just trimmed them out, like I said, stuck them in place. Add a little bit of water if you're having trouble getting it to stick. There's a little section of his one arm here. Because I have a black and white printer, you can't tell. But that little piece right there is going to be blue. It's on like the underside of his upper arm, so kind of like his tricep sort of area. So that's what I cut out, and that's what I stuck on right there. There's also, in the picture that I chose, a little bit of blue of his back that's showing. So I'm using my circle cutters to just line it up with that little tiny sliver I trimmed off and putting it on his back. And you kind of see how it goes now. Now I'm going to cut out his head and his other arm, that big long one in the front there, like that. And I'm doing that because, again, I'm kind of giving depth to the flat character that we're making. Because the blue sticks out as high as it does, it's going to look weird if his, arm is like sunken into his body, that crosses in front of the blue. So I traced it out in the reds, and again, it's a little bit thicker than the blue, but it's still pretty darn thin, I gotta say. So I trimmed out the arm again, laid it right on top of where the other one is, so there's no issue there. Trim out the head, same idea, just make sure it's the nice shape, nice size. Put it in place in there. See how he's a little more coming at you now, and the blue doesn't look so weird, and the 3D-ness of the 2D-ness that we're making makes a little more sense. Now I am just kind of freehanding his eyes, the white part of his eye mask there. I did a big curve across the top, kind of like I'm making a fancy letter M with the two lines coming down. Make two little lines going toward the center to make triangles, and then I kind of right there cut the tip like that. Cut the tip of the one part of the triangle off on both sides and just round it a little bit. I'm using the mask just to line up where on his face I need the eyes to sit, because it's not quite centered, it's down lower. These cartoon characters, more anatomically correct, so they don't have eyes on the top of their forehead. And now I let him dry. This was like yesterday that I did all this, and now I've come back to him. Now that he's hardened up enough, I'm going to start using my edible food coloring marker. It's black, and just start drawing on the lines and the designs of his webbing. So I made some lines going down his foot. I'm making lines going up his calf. and then just make curved lines going across. I am curving these on the foot and the leg. They kind of curve upward, I think. It's kind of hard to tell, but I think that's what I did. Same thing with this leg. I just went straight down the entire boot and down his foot. Follow the curve of his foot and his ankle a little bit. You can see I did that on the lines more toward the left. They kind of go down into his heel rather than just straight down. All right, so just be careful how you place those lines. And you don't need a ton of them either. You can see I've got the cutout of his boot there next to me just to kind of give me the idea of how the lines are supposed to go. So don't go crazy with the lines, just, make enough so it looks good. I'm just drawing in the fingers and thumb on his fist here. Again, I'm not going crazy with it either. It's gonna lose a lot of the detail, unfortunately. Once I start putting all these lines in, which I just drew a bunch going down his arm, and now again, just curved lines going across. And make sure in between your stripes, the curved lines, that they touch each other because it's supposed to be more like spider webbing. It's supposed to be spider webbing, not supposed to be like spider webbing. So the lines are supposed to touch each other on the curves where they meet on the perpendicular lines, the vertical lines. Ugh, it's hard to explain. Okay, I've got the lines going down his arm, and I start doing my horizontal lines now across. The horizontal lines need to touch each other. So you're basically making a bunch of like cursive letter M's or flying birds, if that was your skill level, drawing birds in the sky as a child. Okay, so you can see these are curving upward just like the shoes were and the arms were. All of his lines kind of curve up toward his body or toward his head. Speaking of head, look how I segued into that. Pretty good, right? I'm doing the lines on his head. He's got a line that follows right along the edge of his eyes. He's got a couple that come out in between them. And then I'm just adding lines down and around. He doesn't have one that goes straight up or straight down his face, so just kind of be aware of that. And again, making the curves. These curves are going to go toward the center of his face. Okay, so just be aware. All the little curves are going to be heading in toward his face. Okay, I'm using my marker again, just giving the blue accents. Some lines on his thighs to accent his knees, accent around his crotch a little bit. There you go. Okay, now I'm making the little spider logo on his chest. It's just a little ball with a bigger oval under it. 4 legs coming out the top and 4 out the bottom. And you're not going to see too much of it though because in theory his body is kind of twisted at an angle. So now I'm making some lines to come down for his torso. And you can see they kind of fan out from his neck. He's not going to be straight up and down since, again, his body is twisted a little bit, so it's not going to be sitting straight. And these curves are going downward. I don't know why, because everything else was heading upwards toward his mask. Maybe I did them wrong, in which case, there you go. Okay, so yeah, add your lines in, put your little details, and yeah, let them dry. He's good. I made some letters. If you guys need to see how to make letters, I have a bunch of videos that shows you how to make letters of different styles. This is just plain old letters. I rolled out the red. I'm using the same size circle cutter, and I'm just trimming out all around. See, I'm making nice little circles, so it's all loop-de-loopity. And if you have a long piece like that, like, oh no, just pull it off like I did. Just pinch it and pull it, and then you fixed it. It's easy to fix. This is going to become the web design. That's going to be the background for the name to sit on, okay? So those letters that I have on there are not attached. It's just so I had the right spacing and everything. So once again, paper towel, it's my friend. I put my web background on the paper towel. Now I rolled out some black, again, as thin as I could do it without destroying everything. And I'm cutting very skinny little lines. In order to put the paint, or the water, on the back, I was just dragging it over the paintbrush like you saw there. And you need to pick a central point somewhere on it, and that's where all the webs are going to come out of. Okay, that's where all your big lines are going to radiate out of. Okay, and you're just going to have a skinny little line come out from whatever that point is out to the tip, the little point of the circles we cut out. Okay, so there you go. It's already pretty webby. I'm using a straw to just cut a little circle out of the center because it was a big pile up from all those other pieces of black. Now I'm using smaller pieces and some water on the back, and I'm using my knife to kind of cut. And we're creating those little letter M's or those little birds, whatever you want to call them, the curves on the web. And like I'd mentioned before, you see how they're all touching each other, and we're going to go in circles and layers all around. And this is so incredibly tedious and time consuming, and you're going to get black from those lines all over your nice clean red. I guarantee it. It's unavoidable and it made me crazy. And I love how this video looks because you can't see it. In order to get it off, you're going to have to get your paintbrush really nice and wet with some water. Brush off the excess water as much as you can. And then you're going to have to just start swabbing it, like mopping a stain off your floor. You know, rub the black spots so it gets good and churned up. Use a piece of the paper towel. You can see it's all chewed up on the one corner there. You see that? On the lower right, I think it is. That's where I was ripping off little bits of paper towel to sop up the water that I used to sop up the black that ran and stained all over. Okay, so once you get all done, all those cuts and all those curves, and you clean up all the stains where the black ran, you're going to have a really cool web design. Like, it really is worth it at the end when you see it all finished and put together. And speaking of put together, time to add those letters for the name that I had been given. I'm putting at an angle just because why not? Make it a little more interesting. Stick it on with some gum paste, a little bit of water, whatever you need to do to make it work. Put them together and you got yourself some really cool Spider-Man decorations for your cake. All right. Okay, so now the business talk. Here we go. Please check out my other videos. I got a whole bunch of other superhero stuff. If you need to add to this, please like and subscribe because I like it when you subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching Caketastic Cakes.